Chapter 10 of the Golden Bough. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Bough. The Golden Bough by Sir James Fraser. Chapter 10. Relics of Tree Worship in Modern Europe. From the foregoing review of the beneficent qualities commonly ascribed to tree spirits, it is easy to understand why customs like the May tree or Maypole have prevailed so widely and figured so prominently in the popular festivals of European peasants. In spring or early summer, or even on Midsummer Day, it was and still is in many parts of Europe the custom to go out to the woods, cut down a tree and bring it into the village, where it is set up amid general rejoicings. Or the people cut branches in the woods and fasten them on every house. The intention of these customs is to bring home to the village and to each house the blessings which the tree spirits has in its power to bestow. Hence the custom in some places of planting a May tree before every house, or of carrying the village May tree from door to door, that every household may receive its share of the blessing. Out of the mass of evidence on this subject, a few examples may be selected. Sir Henry Pearce, in his Description of Westmeath, writing in 1682, says, "On May Eve every family sets up before their door a green bush, strewed over with yellow flowers, which the meadows yield plentifully. In countries where timber is plentiful, they erect tall slender trees, which stand high, and they continue almost the whole year, so as a stranger should go nigh to imagine that they were all signs of ale cellars, and that all houses were ale houses. In Northamptonshire, a young tree 10 or 12 feet high used to be planted before each house on May Day, so as to appear growing. Flowers were thrown over it and strewn about the door. Among ancient customs still retained by the Cornish may be reckoned that of decking their doors and porches on the 1st of May with green boughs of sycamore and hawthorn, and of planting trees, or rather stumps of trees, before their houses. In the north of England it was formerly the custom for young people to rise a little after midnight on the morning of the 1st of May, and go out with music and the blowing of horns into the woods, where they broke branches and adorned them with nosegays and crowns of flowers. This done, they returned about sunrise and fastened the flower-decked branches over the doors and windows of their houses. At Abingdon, in Berkshire, young people formerly went about in groups on May morning, singing a carol of which the following are two of the verses. We've been rambling all the night, and some time of this day, and now we returning back again, we bring a garland gay. A garland gay we bring you here, and at your door we stand. It is a sprout well budded out, the work of our Lord's hand. At the towns of Saffold Walden and Debden in Essex, on the 1st of May, little girls go about in parties from door to door, singing a song almost identical with the above, and carrying garlands. A doll dressed in white is usually placed in the middle of each garland. Similar customs have been, and indeed are still observed in various parts of England. The garlands are generally in the form of hoops intersecting each other at right angles. It appears that a hoop wreathed with rowan and March marigold, and bearing suspended within it two balls, is still carried on May Day by villagers in some parts of Ireland. The balls, which are sometimes covered with gold and silver paper, are said to have originally represented the sun and moon. In some villages of the Vosges Mountains, on the first Sunday of May, young girls go in bands from house to house singing a song in praise of May, in which mention is made of the bread and meal that come in May. If money is given them, they fasten a green bough to the door. If it is refused, they wish the family many children and no bread to feed them. In the French department of Mayenne, boys who bore the name of Maillotins used to go about from farm to farm on the 1st of May singing carols, for which they received money or a drink. They planted a small tree or a branch of a tree. Near Saverne in Alsace, bands of people go about carrying May trees. Among them is a man dressed in a white shirt with his face blackened. In front of him is carried a large May tree, but each member of the band also carries a smaller one. One of the company bears a huge basket, in which he collects eggs, bacon, and so forth. On the Thursday before Whitsunday, the Russian villagers go out into the woods, sing songs, weave garlands, and cut down a young birch tree, which they dress up in women's clothes, or adorn with many-colored shreds and ribbons. After that comes a feast, at the end of which they take the dressed up birch tree, carry it home to their village with joyful dance and song, and set it up in one of the houses, where it remains as an honoured guest till Whitsunday. On the 2 intervening days they pay visits to the house where their guest is, but on the third day, Whitsunday, they take her to a stream and fling her into its waters, throwing their garlands after her. In this Russian custom the dressing of the birch in woman's clothes shows how clearly the tree is personified, and the throwing it into a stream is most probably a rain charm. In some parts of Sweden, on the eve of May Day, lads go about carrying each a bunch of fresh birch twigs wholly or partly in leaf. With the village fiddler at their head they make the round of the houses singing May songs. The burden of their songs is a prayer for fine weather, a plentiful harvest, and worldly and spiritual blessings. One of them carries a basket in which he collects gifts of eggs and the like. If they are well received, they stick a leafy twig in the roof over the cottage door. But in Sweden, midsummer is the season when these ceremonies are chiefly observed. On the eve of St. John, the 23rd of June, the houses are thoroughly cleansed and garnished with green boughs and flowers. Young fir trees are raised at the doorway and elsewhere about the homestead, and very often small umbrageous arbours are constructed in the garden. In Stockholm, on this day a leaf market is held at which thousands of maypoles, majstänger, from 6 inches to 12 feet high, decorated with leaves, flowers, slips of coloured paper, gilt eggshells strung on reeds, and so on, are exposed for sale. Bonfires are lit on the hills, and the people dance around them and jump over them. But the chief event of the day is setting up the maypole. This consists of a straight and tall spruce pine tree, stripped of its branches. At times hoops and other pieces of wood, placed crosswise, are attached to it at intervals, whilst at others it is provided with bows, representing, so to say, a man with his arms akimbo. From top to bottom, not only the majstång, maypole itself, but the hoops, bows, etc., are ornamented with leaves, flowers, slips of various cloth, gilt eggshells, etc., and on the top of it is a large vase, or it may be a flag. The raising of the maypole, the decoration of which is done by the village maidens, is an affair of much ceremony. The people flock to it from all quarters, and dance around it in a great ring. Midsummer customs of the same sort used to be observed in some parts of Germany. Thus in the towns of the upper Harz mountains, tall fir trees, with the bark peeled off their lower trunks, were set up in open places and decked with flowers and eggs, which were painted yellow and red. Round these trees the young folk danced by day and the old folk in the evening. In some parts of Bohemia also, a maypole or midsummer tree is erected on St. John's Eve. The lads fetch a tall fir or pine from the wood and set it up on a height, where the girls deck it with nosegays, garlands, and red ribbons. It is afterwards burned. It would be needless to illustrate at length the custom which has prevailed in various parts of Europe, such as England, France, and Germany, of setting up a village May tree or maypole on May Day. A few examples will suffice. The puritanical writer Philip Stubbs, in his Anatomy of Abuses, first published at London in 1583, has described with manifest disgust how they used to bring in the maypole in the days of good Queen Bess. His description affords us a vivid glimpse into merry England in the older time. Against May, Whitsunday, or other time, all the young men and maids, old men and wives, run gadding overnight to the woods, groves, hills, and mountains, where they spend all the night in pleasant pastimes, and in the morning they return, bringing with them birch and branches of trees, to deck their assemblies withal. And no marvel, for there is a great lord present amongst them, as superintendent and lord over their pastimes and sports, namely Satan, prince of hell. But the chiefest jewel they bring from thence is their maypole, which they bring home with great veneration, as thus: they have 20 or 40 yoke of oxen, each ox having a sweet nosegay of flowers placed on the tip of his horns, and these oxen draw home this maypole, this stinking idol rather, which is covered all over with flowers and herbs, bound round about with strings, from the top to the bottom, and sometime painted with various colours, with 200 or 300 men, women, and children following it with great devotion, and thus being reared up, with handkerchiefs and flags hovering on the top, they straw the ground round about, bind green boughs round it, set up summer halls, bowers, and arbours hard by it, and then fall they to dance about it, like as